They're starting to get that synergy together, but we are at a Champs League here for our first game between these two teams. LGD over on the blue side with their red logo, Vici over on the red side with their white logo. Azir banned out there by LGD, casted in the next ban there for Vici. Pretty standard stuff so far.
Probably the most consistent performer from Vici. It's not one you would have picked pre-season. It's been Vici, who's been very consistent on AD carries, particularly Tristana. And of course I bring that up because we're on 5.21. The reworked Tristana is available to be chosen right here. There's kind of a lot of conjecture over whether that Tristana is strong, isn't strong. Definitely has some huge burst in the early to mid game if she's able to activate her E with the W rocket jump. So she has positions of power, but will the traditional Tristana player show off for the first time here?
Well, we've seen a lot of, I think, very similar looking stuff as the players sort of feel out the new patch here, but bans are still coming through. Janna Rek'Sai there for LGD, their second and third, and the second there for Vici's old Rumble. So again, a lot more of the expected stuff here despite the changes, and Zed, that's a bit different there for Vici.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see that. Wayless has been performing pretty consistently, but just not been able to parlay some good laning into carrying his team. The Zed blind ban is just really surprising to me right now. I wouldn't have expected a Zed lock-in, and it leaves up Lissandra, that flex pick, as the first pick for LGD.
Yeah, lots of respect there given to Wales, who's had some great games, but feels like he kind of goes with his team. He's very good at playing cleanup or janitor duty on the champions he has. Maybe not necessarily carrying like Imp was doing when they were playing very well, but Lissandra, the strong pick here, and plenty of good options now for Vici.
And there's still, exactly, that's the big thing here, is that although you take the Lissandra, there's two strong champions available. And Kalista is in the LPL because it's been banned, consistently been picked in drafts very early. The very early lock comes in here from Vasily.
You actually pick it over Jarvan there as well. So now Kalista, the startings of the Vici draft, and Vasily's been the other Kalista player, has had success on the champion as well. You're right that a lot of AD carry players are flocking to it, and like you said, it's not just Marta anymore that's really pulling their weight in the bottom lane. Vasily's played very well in the first 5 weeks as well.
You know, they already had the gap close locked in. It was already the Lissandra first pick coming out. The Vi pick is added to that already in this draft. They're discussing the next pick. That's already two very strong gap closers to deal with the hypermobile Kalista. Kalista needs to get the autos away, but there's a lot of upfront CC coming from just the first two picks.
Yeah, and if this does settle in, and it will here from LGD, Graves there in the bottom lane against that Kalista, and the Vi in the jungle as well. And we didn't quite get to mention it yet, but Dandy, you know, we used to kind of pair Dandy and Marta together, but it seems like Marta and Vasily kind of more of that duo now. Dandy's just doing work all on his own.
And I mean, Dandy actually showed off a fantastic Vi in a series last week. LGD have locked in the Vi. They are currently 0-1 playing Vi and 0-3 against Vi. It's been a horror pick for them. Taking it away from Danny, that might be one thing, but they just haven't seen success with this champion or against it. So they're going to have to change and arrest that slump if they're willing to get back into this series.
Yeah, more changes here as well for Vici. Needle has actually been locked in there as well, and Annie probably for support there for Marta. So a bit more aggressive in the support role, and that could be finally the jungle Nidalee.
It could be. I'm not willing to commit to it because, again, much like Clearlove, I don't see Dandy being fitting Dandy's playstyle ideally, but I'm sure he's been practicing in solo queue. It's been so popular on this 5.2 patch. Since some balance adjustments in the later 5.3 patch that's just been released. But yeah, I mean, with the Ahri mouse over here, it would likely be a jungle Nidalee.
I mean, quickly, just with the wombo that LGD are really completing lots of hard engage here. It is already by Lissandra. Now Kennen and Leona added to that lineup as well. Vasily has his work cut out for him, keeping people off his back this game.
I mean, when we see Kalista work and we see them at the back of a fight, spreading those Ren targets, getting so much lifesteal on, living a lot longer after the initial gap close, but the gap close never ends from LGD, even now with Kennen running in. It's the second time we've seen the Kennen vs. Gnar matchup. It didn't work up for Lupa last week. You can see that they're very similar champions in lane with a lot of range. Should be safe there, the Kennen. But I haven't been convinced by Kennen so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one play. We'll see how Acorn can do, but Hatong did take the Zeros, which does mean that Dandy has the jungle Nidalee, and this is one of the things that we didn't expect coming into the new patch, but was sort of available here. And Dandy, I believe, the first play for the LPL now for jungle Nidalee.
Yeah, the first jungle Nidalee, because Pawn, we thought it would be Clearlove taking, and that would have been the greatest of styles clash to see Clearlove picking up the jungle Nidalee. It ended up being the mid Nidalee there, so we were a bit disappointed, but going to see it here from Dandy. The damage ganks from Nidalee are just so surprising. They're from such long range because you can't react to a 1200, 1400 range skill shot. And then it gives that targeted gap close. There's a lot of burst potential coming in. If the lanes have the CC to add to it, can be very effective, but can also be prone to counter jungle, especially if there's a lane swap and you group in and invade Nidalee's jungle. In 2v2 in the early game, struggles to skirmish with those higher base stats junglers.
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of what it does in this comp. It's kind of fit into a very rounded comp. There is a lot of CC actually between the Na, the Xerath, and the Annie. So they do have options there as far as engage goes. But you're right, it's a very different sort of jungle pick and doesn't really suit Dandy's regular style, I guess.
No, it doesn't suit his regular style, but you can see what they're going for here. They see the team fight Wombo and LGD's side, and they want to out-rotate, they want to poke, and they want to take this game in a split push fashion. In a 5v5 fight, they do not stand up to just so much team fight control and damage coming out from LGD. It's going to be the split push favor of Kalista right here. With the Hurricane, can still push waves, can be effective as a split pusher, but in a team fight, there's no way she can stand up to all that AoE damage.
Yeah, and we do have a brief pause in the game as well, so it shouldn't be too much longer before we get in, but a slight delay there. And you said it here, Kalista, who already struggles against the likes of Lissandra Vi. LGD have a plan here, and it seems to be to pick on Vasily, who's been playing quite well, because that's almost all of the engage you could ever need. I mean, Lissandra Vi might be enough, but Leona and Cannon as well on top of it.
And they have so many engage options, as you said. The engage will be reliable just because they have so many chances that even if they flashed, even if they fall down, they'll still be able to re-engage. The question is, they've got a melee support, they've got a short-range AD carry. They are prone to being lane swapped on. It's the rotational play that will win Vici this game, because in team fights, they can't hold a candle to all that CC.
Well, let's see. We're on pause and onto the Rift. And welcome onto the Rift, ladies and gentlemen. LGD here, playing their first game of the week here for week 5 of the Chinese LPL. They're the blue team here on this one. Vici over on the right, looking to repeat some of the success they had last weekend as well. And a big clash between two big teams. And of course, the centerpiece here, kind of down towards Mata versus Imp.
Yeah, they're going to go for the aggressive invade for Vision right here. It makes sense with the Nidalee jungle to not play reactively, because you're always at the risk of being late invaded. And if Nidalee's taken away from above, the camps actually scale really fast, and she has trouble clearing them if she's really denied off those first couple of levels. So smart to engage for Vision here. Look for any potential camp stealaways, but just try and give some safety and predictability to the enemy jungle, just to give Nidalee the time to get those first few levels.
Yeah, we did allude to it a bit as well there, but one of the other things jungle Nidalee is quite good at, in the early levels especially, is actually dueling the enemy junglers. So the more space you're able to create in your enemy's jungle, the better your Nidalee is going to have.
It's just a kind of a weird kind of polarizing thing that if you can get on top of that Nidalee, her base stats let her down and she can't skirmish quite as well. But if you can't, and if you're invading as the Nidalee, once you get maybe the level 2 and just have access to multiple rotations of your human form and ranged form spells, then you do invade very well. So it's certainly peaks and troughs, but the most potent way to deal with a jungle Nidalee is to keep her from her first buff. If you can keep her from her first buff, if you can keep her from that quick level 3, picking up all her skills, that obvious rotation of spells in Cougar form, then she struggles.
And jungle Nidalee is a very weird champion, right? Like, kind of came as something that people started playing with in solo queue after some changes and has seen some success and some play internationally around the world. But if we take the Nidalee out of Vici's comp for a second, what else do they do?
I mean, the Nidalee augments a lot of the poke. So, of course, they've got Xerath in the mid lane, so they clearly have a lot of line poke if they're trying to skirmish. They've got the Na for a bit of team fight, control. But the Kalista bottom lane, the Kalista Annie they're running there, in a 2v2 situation, it actually does stand up quite well against Graves Leona. You have to be careful as Annie in the early levels to not get all-in by that level 2 Leona. Is taking Ignite, so you know it's going to be very aggressive posturing from PYL in a 2v2 matchup. But I can definitely see the flavor of what they're going for in their comp, but it does involve split pushing a lot here. They need to rely on getting excellent aggressive warding into the enemy jungle to open up space for Kalista to be able to split push, because the moment all those AoE CCs were locked in, team fighting kind of went out the wall if you're Kalista.
Yeah, that's, I think, pretty fair there as well, just from even the early picks in the draft here. And maybe LGD's issue here is that if Dandy can get aggressive here on this Nidalee, then Schwen's going to have a bad time, because his Vi, as you said it, LGD have had no successful Vi, either playing with or against her. So Schwen probably got a lot of practice in the last week, given how popular Vi was, but has to have a good game here as well.
And Vi is a very obvious counter pick to Kalista, able to get on top of her, able to lock her down. No Morgana selected here, so will have to eat the Assault and Battery engage. And there's so much more engage. Again, it removes options for LGD. You can teamfight as a Kalista in a lot of situations. She struggles against frontline tanks. There is the Gnar, but there isn't a double frontline tank. Dandy especially, definitely not a frontline tank coming from the jungle. But all this CC is she just doesn't have any options. She doesn't have the mobility because she's going to be locked down and killed almost instantly in a fight with so many dive options. So that's why the split push is opened up. Once you get Hurricane, once you try and opt into that split push block, you can use the Rend to clear the minions. You don't have to cancel your autos. You can just clear the minion waves quite quickly. And the split push might be the best way to move here just because it's a short range bottom lane. It's Graves with the 525 range. It's Leona who has to go all in to initiate. The split push is their best option.
I mean, what do we think of the aggressive bottom lane there as well? We kind of painted the matchup here as a little bit of Imp versus Marta, and LGD are clearly taking the much more aggressive lane into this, again, very short range, more late game scaling Kalista.
I mean, it's basically 5 dive champions if you look down the ranks. It's Cannon in the top lane is going to dive in with the Slicing Maelstrom. Chuen on the Vi is going to be going in with the Assault and Battery. Lissandra's gap closes, her biggest asset, gets past the Janna Peel. That's why we see so much Lissandra pay. Graves does most damage at melee range, even as a ranged AD carry, and PWL has to go all in as Leona. So it's all across the board, all in potential, and there's no real disengage on Vici's side. In fact, it's more engage. They have great poke, they can take turrets well, they can split, but team fighting is just not an option.
Yeah, and I do like that PWL's sort of back onto a more independent champion, I guess you could say. You know, not the Kalista that Imp seemed to want to play over and over and over again in the earlier matches last week. And, you know, a somewhat self-reliant carry here for Imp, who can kind of carry on anything. He's had a lot of success on short-range ADs actually recently, especially Siva, who is very popular. But PWL here as well. If he wants to roam, if he wants to make plays and get early vision down, he can pretty happily leave Imp to his own devices there.
The first item buy will be the big thing. If he's able to go back and buy those mobility boots, there's so much setup CC in the other lanes, whether it's Kennen, whether it's Wayless' Lissandra, that the extra CC from Leona should be enough to pick up kills. So if they can open up a vision advantage in the early mid-game and get those assassination kills, put the poke team behind an experience, maybe no way back into the game for Vici. I guess the big unknown, you know, the debut of Jungle Nidalee in the LPL, what sort of pressure can Dandy provide? Because it's not going to be... When Vici have looked their best, it's been Dandy really aggressively putting in vision, whether it's been Vi, whether it's been the Jarvan, getting the aggressive vision in, or Nunu, for example, and kind of controlling the enemy's movements. But that's not really a realistic build option for Nidalee. Doesn't really find time to incorporate Sightstone into a build among all the AP stacking you're looking to do to make those spears work. So maybe it will be a different flavor of Nidalee. I'd be very surprised. I haven't moused over to her base stats just yet. I assume it's going to be a decent stack of AP to clear the camps, but it just doesn't fall under his usual playstyle. That's why it's kind of a mystery to me.
I mean, that's the other thing that we've already seen today, actually, with earlier matches. We, of course, casted the first game here with EDG versus EP, and with the patch changing a lot and some more picks coming through, you know, players experimenting more and wanting to, you know, change some of their styles with the way that the metagame has shifted as well. Interesting that, you know, EDG sort of still stuck to their same game plan, but had to play a very mid-game centric sort of style. Didn't have the early game snowballing rotations, relied much more on pushing through their mid-game and sort of winning that way. And here for Vici especially, this is a big change here. If you're going to pick a champion like Nidalee, your style goes from, you know, playing a lot of Nunu and maybe a lot of Rengo and really being a control jungler like Dandy normally is, to being, I don't know, a duelist, a poke jungler. I mean, Nidalee, again, very strange jungle pick.
And look, we can say the same thing about EDG on Clear Love there. We were so surprised to see him move away from the Sightstone, but there's not been any changes to vision over these patches, so there was no real impetus, at least as far as we could see, in terms of transitioning towards a more frontline tank farming carry jungler like Hecarim in the first game, but it worked out for them. They played around the lack of ward coverage, and look, maybe Vici can do the same thing here. They can understand that it won't be the vision game that necessarily will win them the game in the early game. That's been the consistent in the wins. It's been Dandy Marta getting that aggressive warding in, and the team starting to learn what they can do and what they can snowball with the vision advantage they've been afforded by that world champion duo. But in this case, you know, he's going to have to build more selfishly. That's just how Nidalee's traditionally built. Whenever we've seen her in the EU LCS or across scenes, it's going to be the AP stacking coming out just for the potential assassination. I mean, Nidalee doesn't offer a lot more in a gank than damage. That's basically what she's there for. There's some setup CC in the lanes, but it'd be definitely a different story if it was Nidalee jungle on the LGD side. They've already got so much dive that Nidalee jungle would almost, with the setup CC, would just be point and click spears into the assassination. Instead, they've doubled down on dive with the Vi. So much initiation.
And we saw a little bit of that sort of Nidalee for damage, basically, to add into a lot of the, I guess, a pick composition there for EDG. I believe when Pong was playing Nidalee, that's a lot of what was going on, was the core Q burst from depth and the Nidalee spears coming in. And as soon as someone ate a CC, whether it was a Makai W or a skill shot, all of the damage comes through and you get picked instantly like that. Nidalee's very good at that. And I feel like her poking might not be as strong as it used to be. I mean, everyone remembers the terror days of the spears all the way back in. And LGD, they have a comp that I think still fits their old style here. So if they've maybe shook out some of the kinks from last week, going to look very strong here.
They do have CC. I mean, of course, Annie can get the Tibbers in. Xerath has quite a lot of CC available in his kit. Gnar can potentially get the Gnar in. So there is set up CC for ganks. It's just not as linear as the LGDs. There's still more risk, more skill shots to be hit on the Vici side.
It feels like a focus is probably going to be in the bottom lane here, like we expected with him versus Mata. But we are back into the game now. LGD versus Vici. Still a pretty big stack there for Vici down towards the bottom side, and we could be seeing a late invade now.
Yeah, the lane swap has been initiated. Imp is at the top, but in a 1v1 against the top laner. They're going to have a bit of jungle follow happening here as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens as this game goes forward, but yeah, I mean, the Nidalee jungle at least getting the first buff and starting off strong.
Yep, so we can see it looks like blue going in there as well. But like you mentioned, Vici are stealing away that red. Imp versus Carry actually in the top lane. Had a bit of a lane swap initiated here. I guess LGD right now are kind of sticking together jungling. Vasily actually 1v0 in the bottom right now. Very happy with how the swaps working out. But lots of early 3-man jungle actually coming out.
And the trio jungle, so much CC available between Leona and the two that she's following there. But it's much more normal now. It's back to the usual top laner following the jungle. Leona has backed here. Picked up some extra wards. They're obviously looking for lane rotations here as PYL. But Imp's going to be very happy 1v1ing Gnar in the top lane.
And I have to say, I love the little team play there between Vasily and Dandy as well. They're actually sentinels kind of parading through the red side. So if Dandy's afraid of himself getting through buffed or wants to know if they've come through there, they actually had a lot of advanced vision there as well. But LGD are going to trade buffs here and look to start vertical jungling.
And they're spotted, but of course will safely pick up the two buffs here. We see they have 3 members at the top of the map. Even Leona adding a 4th body towards the top of the map. No way for Nidalee to contest that objective.
And again, PYL back to more of the early game roaming here. Not quite the Annie that we saw from him where it looked devastating in level 1 and 2 ganks, but on Leona still being very proactive. Happy to leave Imp to farm by himself because, again, he's a very self-reliant, very strong carry player, but it has to open up good room for Vasily's Kalista as well.
Yeah, Kalista basically forced reactive play from PYL. He has to group to get the most out of the champion's kit, but it really hurt the team strategically, limited their options, and you can see with the amount that Leona's already been roaming in this game that it just suits PYL much more to have a more independent champion pick.
Yeah, Mata still level 1 as well, so very independent here as well. Dandy actually starting off the dragon very early, and this is one of the things we didn't actually hit on. Jungle Nidalee pretty good at these early gimmick dragons.
Yeah, he's so able to get the reset on your different form, your Cougar form abilities. You can do a huge burst of damage. Mata actually able to tank up surprisingly well at level 1 here, you have to say. And that's a very early dragon, a 4-minute dragon coming out of Vici Gaming.
Yeah, so Vici getting creative. Dandy and Mata, friends of old from the World Championship. Still friends here as well on Vici. And a very nice steal away there to start off Vici's game just how they wanted it to.
Yeah, and the one thing we haven't seen at the start of the game, of course, is the 2v2 matchup. The Imp versus Mata lane matchup has been dodged so far, but we're all waiting with bated breath to see it actually come to the fore.
I mean, I like that Mata actually has Annie here because he has the chance to potentially kill Imp, which I'm sure he'll be very happy about. And teams in general have picked on Imp a lot when they've played against him. So Vici in general, maybe it's a thing for Mata. He wants to make it a bit personal, but just a good strategy in general.
Yeah, definitely. And we have the 2v2 lane and bottom lane. Kennen, of course, a AD carry of past metas, so can very capably work in a 2v2 lane. So I mean, the Graves versus Gnar in the top lane, both very tanky, both have passives that give them extra tank stats. It's fairly even across the board despite these unconventional laning matchups.
Yeah, it looks like that early freeze in the top lane. Setting now behind a little bit. It's 10-6, like, actually, between the two would-be top laners here, and about 35 each for the carries. So the free from working nicely for the carries, but top lane's a little hamstrung in the early stages of the game as they try and get their farm as best they can in either their 1v1 or their 2v1 lanes.
And it makes more sense for him to be getting the solo farm compared to Kalista, just because, of course, Kalista needs a person next to him to get enough out of the kit. So Imp is priced in to get the solo farm. That means that carry will be able to get level 6, will get strong on this Gnar. But the lane matchup kind of shaked out as expected.
Yeah, and Xuen down the bottom there. Over on that Vi. Does just kind of pop back into his base and has picked up the Trailblazer now as well. We've seen a lot of Trailblazers today, but Dandy actually doing something a bit different. Has more of the classic there, going with the Chilling Smite again. And Whalus actually going in there, but Dandy going to successfully counter jungle away that camp.
Yeah, we made the point that no CC available from that jungle Nidalee. Of course, Chilling Smite does give her a CC option, but it does make a clear that much more difficult. But Schwen looks like he's going to contest for this Gromp.
Yeah, he knows what's on. Danny could be in trouble there. Looks like Schwen going to go back in with a flash. Popping over there for Vici. Schwen actually just missing the next auto. Dandy now going to jump in there as well. He's going to hop over the pit. Will get to safety and no follow there for Vi. Wad's over, but can't chase.
And the follow-up flash for level 4 Vi was just completely unexpected, as in the bot lane, Annie falls down.
Yeah, looks like we had some issues there. Akon actually teleported up there as well by the looks of things to make sure that everything could work out okay. And the first bot actually in the bottom lane, Marta gets bloodthirsty.
Yeah, Marta gets bloodthirsty on PYL, so the Korean superstar support gets the first blood in the face of the Chinese.
And now Carry actually going to go for a walk here as well with the teleport going actually away from his tower. Knew the dive was coming, wanted to get away, and Akon teleporting almost picked off Dandy there as well. Pretty amazing that Nidalee lived, and first blood as a result went to Vici.
I mean, Nidalee has so much mobility from level 1 now that she has Cougar form abilities that early in the game, so it's not that surprising to see her able to pick up the escape right. I was actually surprised to see the follow-up flash coming from Vi, just because at level 4, especially with 2 points in the Vault Breaker, you're just not able to close gaps once you've used the first charge of that.
Yeah, that's one of the things where Vi, especially pre-6, does have some issues closing those distances and really clamping down the gank. So Dandy got very aggressive with his counter jungling, but was able to almost get away with the Gromp, but at least get away with his life there. So we are returning to a bit more of a standard look here. Akon still down the bottom actually with Pure in that sort of off-standard 2v2 lane, but very serviceable there for Cannon and Imp as well, picking up his farm. Already got his BF sword, but Vasili's in the same boat.
Yeah, they're very similar in terms of power spikes, but Imp is continuing to split. They are continuing to opt out of the potential 2v2 on bottom lane. Of course, the first dragon's already down, so they're not looking to contest that objective for at least a few minutes yet, but they're happy to have this Graves versus Nah matchup in the top.
And it's looking very comfortable for Imp so far, so not super surprising there. Carry just can't quite get aggressive. I mean, it's fun. It's sort of two short-range 80 carries going against each other, at least when Minina's concerned, but Graves a little bit better in that role here, but Marta also joining Dandy now, and Dandy goes for another red buff steal.
See some blue pings on the map. They're kind of aware that this is happening. They're just not in position to contest it. Dandy continues to monopolize that red side red buff, so the blue side red buff, and steals it away.
It does keep Vasili a little safer as well. Kalista, as we've said, does need to scale up a little bit more, so Vasili going to be happy to be covered there by his teammate, but Schwen will get the red buff there as well. Dandy now going to continue to counter. It's almost hilarious that he doesn't have the poacher's knife, but he's done a lot of work taking things away from Vi and trying to keep that level 6 down for as long as possible.
If you see the amount of LGD wards towards the top side jungle, the red side of red jungle right there, you can understand why Dandy's committing to the bot, but Marta's actually going in aggressive.
Yeah, actually got Kalista ulted in there. PLL could be in trouble. Just some damage coming through, but not quite enough to pick off Leona, but very smart play from the 2v2.
It's a very good adaptation for Dandy to monopolize that side of the jungle, just because his top side jungle is so over-warded here from LGD. So Dandy jungling on the right side, jungling on the side with more members.
Yeah, and that's often what we see when we use the term vertical jungling. The map sort of split in half by the junglers, and they tend to take, the top and bottom instead of the, I guess, their side of the map here. So Tong does go ahead, not get the blue up, unfortunately. That did go to Dandy.
Yeah, it went to Dandy there. Finally going to see, no, we're going to continue with this matchup in top. Graves doing his best to harass Gnar off the minion map. The result in terms of CS is very even across the top laners.
Yeah, so the would-be top laners here, of course, have been stuck in some 1v1 or 1v2 lanes for a lot of this game. It's very even. The AD carry is keeping up here as well, so it's really a matter of where do we want to prioritize our farm. I feel like both Gnar and Cannon are decent without too much farm, and I guess Graves versus Kalista is sort of debatable.
And the early pickup here from Dandy is the tier. He can, of course, stack that with his Cougar form abilities, which don't have any cost, but he's investing in a scaling item as a jungler. Usually junglers have to invest in the most cost-effective items because they're usually one of the lower gold generation classes in League of Legends. So to opt in for that scaling, okay, Nidalee has strong base damages, but it just takes down her trading ability in the early game.
Yeah, Dandy actually looking for a Spear into Wailers. Doesn't hit it though, and the Glacial Path will keep him safe. Looks like Zeret's just going to poke back and forth, but apart from that first kill for Marta, not much action except Vasili and Marta going to start up Vici's second dragon now.
Yeah, the second dragon at a very early clip here. They will be able to take it down and uncontested again, though Vi is at least interested at this point.
And mean, looks like Schwinn might have a look, but it's going to be a little too late. Kalista and Italy going to secure that very easily for Vici, and that's 2 in 10.5 minutes there. That second dragon, got taken sort of the regular kit for a first dragon, and Imp there, level 8 versus 6 there for Carry, getting very aggressive onto the Nara, and Carry's starting to fall pretty far behind in CS.
We have to commend Imp for his laning in the top side here. To be 19 CS, to have forced basically 19 CS away from the Nara compared to how much Cannon has picked up, and to take the turret, has been fantastic wave control here from Imp.
Yeah, we can see Vici might have backed down the bottom. Marta not quite level 6 yet, but does have a kill under his belt. Some quick Moby boots there as well. And I imagine a sight soon probably coming through next for Marta if he's got enough gold for it. Vici in the meantime still farming over this BF sword, as Schwann's trying to clear out some wards in his jungle as well. So apart from the first blood from Marta and a couple of early dragons, very close game. In fact, LGD, despite being down those objectives, are actually up about 400 gold.
And of course, the value of dragon at these early stages is always hard to quantify. It's not reflected in the gold lead anymore. So if you can pick up exit kills when one team picks up dragon, you might say that even if they have 2 dragon buffs, you're ahead in the early game. They haven't been able to do that, but in terms of farming and CSing, they're doing very well for themselves.
Yeah, and Dandy continuing to be aggressive. It's actually about 9 CS, also 10 ahead of the other jungle, so has done a good job of keeping Schwinn down, but Vi, now level 7, does have the ulti available, so can start to maybe impact these lanes. But again, LGD and their Vi success not looking great in the first 12 minutes or so.
Yeah, with all the lane swaps and kind of the vertical jungle, it's been very difficult for Vi to have an impact despite all the CC in the lane. So for her to be hold down and forced to just purely farming is a win, you'd have to say, for the team with jungle in Italy.
I think so, as Dandy's going to rotate in towards the top there as well, down the bottom though. Imp continuing to farm. We've actually swapped back finally into our standard lane, so we'll eventually have Imp versus Marta. It looks like Akon looking to go in, Schwinn as well getting aggressive, but Dandy knows what's up here. I'm not too sure what Nidalee adds other than damage, but that might be enough for him. In fact, is going to show himself and just help Carry push out the wave.
Tren, I think, revealed himself as well, so it makes this gank harder, but he looks like he's still going to initiate.
Yeah, wants to go on to Carry, but a good bounce there does come through. Flash actually used there as well by 9. Now Dandy going to get ulted there by Vi, but that's Cannon very far away. Lasada popping over the top. The W there locks him down. Now the ulti on the Carry. The ulti from Cannon as well, and there's the double for Vi.
So much lockdown CC coming when Lissandra comes up to the top lane there. They pick up the 2 kills. They're rotating good in the mid lane. They might actually get some damage into the turret, but no, Hetong's there to relieve pressure.
Yeah, the Xerath wave could going to deny any dreams of that turret push here, but the CC chains, we kind of speculated about it in draft. Insane amount of chain CC available there to LGD.
Yeah, and 2 kills both going down to Tren will accelerate the mid game for this Vi. Can double down on damage, going to work towards the Hex Drinker. So he takes the turret, he's in trouble.
Yeah, hits the E there as well. Pioliolo actually misses after the flash. Now Marta going back in, gets ulted there by Kalista, and Carry's going to move in, but Marta just pops himself back. Carry, not enough rage. They're going to try and poke him down. PYL does get rendered, but flashes and heals there as well, and we'll be safe for now.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see Marta go so defensively when used the Kalista, or maybe it was a misclick there. Wasn't able to get the initiation up. Had Tibbers, had the stun, had flash, but no initiation coming from the Annie.
Yeah, got closed the wrong way there, unfortunately, as Schwinn will finally get a red buff from Zone. I think that's the first, actually, for Vi on her own side of the jungle. So Schwinn, again, starting to roam around a bit more. And the CC, when it works very well. Now Vici actually could be in trouble. Going to get punched. Good juke there. Now going to go back in onto Imp. The damage from Vi, pretty immense. Vici uses the Ren, but it's not enough. And a 3rd kill now for Schwinn.
Imp was confident in dueling there despite all the Ren stacks piling on, but Tren is so snowballing this game. 3-0-0, 650 CS. Maybe the terrors of the LGD Vi will go away.
Yeah, Wailer's still in trouble. It does go down to Dandy. Actually didn't even need any more than a bolt from Hetong's ulti. And Imp still pushing aggressively in towards this section of the map as well. But LGD, they're starting to get kills now. That comp's really coming together.
Yeah, they have so much lockdown CC. We talked about how team fighting wasn't a realistic option here for Vici. They need to double down on the split push. But Kalista obviously was caught in their rotations. They're gone for the Bloodthirster first here, Vici. We've seen that build almost exclusively from Crystal on champions like Draven just because of all his Q damage. It makes sense to have flat attack damage on the Kalista, but she scales so well with attack speed. We're going to check the max, I guess, and it is still the Rend max. So the Rend will be doing more damage per stack, but not the attack speed to really abuse that.
Yeah, it's just a bit more of a defensive choice here for Vici once, you know, basically that shield and a bit more lifesteal and raw Eddie to help him as he pushes out these lanes. It will help when he gets onto towers, but of course, not so much in the fights there. Nomicron's actually up for both mid lanes as well, and Imp is done with his Infinity Edge, so the items are starting to come out, and I have to say, this comp here from LGD is very reminiscent of something we referenced today already, which was the old school OMG freight train style. You know, just go and use the ulti, and now down the bottom, Schwen gonna dunk onto Vasily. So much damage with the collateral, and in for the Infinity Edge, shred through Kalista.
No need for skill shots with that initiation. Flash, Assault and Battery. Imp got into the short range for the QR combo. It's a very reliable team comp. That's the important thing I'll say for LGD there, is that they can get these engagements done very well, and Vici's split push so far has been punished at every turn.
Yeah, I mean, they were getting good objectives around. Dandy especially was moving through with his Nidalee, rotating with his team and helping push down objectives, but LGD are just getting kill after kill, and now they're getting objectives on top of them as well. Vici can't keep up if all they do is take objectives. LGD are going to kill them and then take their own structures.
And look, this is a new game plan here for Vici. For once, it's not about Dandy and Mata trying to strangle Vision. They're inevitably going to be behind in Vision this game. And it's showing, and they haven't got the same options they're used to, and they're struggling to take any objectives.
Yeah, good bit of poke there from Dandy, narrowly missing Imp to cancel that recall there as well. Dragon is back up, and if the one thing we can say for Vici in this game is that Dragon controls look very strong, so if objectives are what Vici want in this game, they're looking for a third Dragon very swiftly.
Yeah, Graves isn't there to compete for this objective. Hatong is going to come down as well. The third Dragon does come down, so they'll take the 3 Dragons, but pushing further, pushing aggressively when teamfight is not really an option against this team will just prove difficult. They're going to have to rely on that 5th Dragon, you'd have to think.
I mean, maybe, and the 3rd Dragon does go to Vici, so on the way now, double wards are coming up from Implayel, showing a bit of that synergy, but unfortunately they both get bad news at the same time. Dragon's already gone.
Yeah, they've got a pretty good timer though. It's not been the rough estimate. The first one really threw off the Dragon control from LGD just because it was taken so early. The level 1 and Annie being able to tank up that objective.
Yeah, this is Mata now on that Annie, going to look to go back to base here as well. Doesn't quite, no, does have his sight stone, sorry, has won a couple of wards, so still being the same Vision-centric support that we know him to be, but has been a little bit more aggressive on Annie and started playing it more as well in the LPL, moving a little bit away from his Janna that was so popular in some of the earlier weeks as well. We see Kalista with boots too now, so a very important pick up there. And Hadong's getting going as well. It's got a needlessly large rod on top of that Merlinomicon.
Yeah, so that really doubles down on his wave clear. Once you pick up that big needlessly large rod on top of an item like Merlinomicon, you can clear waves from so long and relieve pressure. Of course, you'd always take Wayless Lissandra against the short and mid-range carries, but against the long-range Xerath, all he can really hope to do is split farm.
Yep, and that's what they're going to try and do here. Acorn as well. We kind of look through more items. Zonya's finished up very swiftly for Kennen, so that team fight that we talked about for LGD looking very potent right now. But unfortunately for them, they haven't been able to contest for a Dragon yet because Vici have stolen all of them. And Vici at this point, as you mentioned already, they don't want to fight LGD.
No, Vici don't want to straight up 5v5 LGD at any point in this game without a pick. They do have pick potential coming out of their comp. Of course, at this point, with the Magus enchantment coming through from Dandy, he has a very respectable amount of AP and it's kept the regen coming up with the Tear of the Goddess. So we'll be doing good poke line damage between the Xerath and Nidalee right here. But it's the Dragon control that's really hurting for LGD. With all this CC, you'd have fancied them in a Dragon Bite, but they've been completely on the back foot ever since the first Dragon.
And that might translate to potentially some Baron control soon or later in the game as well, as Baron is going to spawn for the first time in just over a minute here as well. And you know, LGD may be taking precautions. They're just taking their neutrals. Going to get the Scuttle Crab on that side. Vasily even checking out as well. And we've seen this a lot from Kalista's, but the objective control secure potential that Kalista has been very popular among LPL players.
Yeah, I'm looking for some aggressive wards for flank engages from LGD. Vici seem to be happy to opt in, look for the poke. You know, Xerath and Nidalee trying to find poke damage on a turret. They need the flank, but specifically from Acorn. If he can get the flank engage with the teleport, he's trying it now.
Yeah, ulti going to come there as well. That's an amazing ult though by Vasily to save. Then Carry now could be in trouble. No, but Acorn dives in with the ulti. Vasily forced a flash out there as well. And Vici will try and reset. Good poke there as well. And here comes the Xerath ulti. Going to chase Acorn. A good Zon is there to save him from the last ball. He throws it in, but it's a little mistimed and can't get it. But now Wayless has killed Vasily there for the next one. Now got another kill, but there's a double actually coming through for Lissandra. Maybe looking for a triple. Doesn't get it, but a 2-for-1 trade.
If the first initiate doesn't work, try again is the mantra from LGD. It looked like the flash slicing Maelstrom wasn't enough, so it thought that the disengage would start, but Wayless was excellent with the self-cast on the Lissandra ultimate. They pick up the first few kills. There's no real objective for them to pressure, and maybe that'll be the factor as this game goes on. They're getting the kills, but not picking up the objectives.
And LGD, you know, they did that a couple times, but you're right, in that fight in particular, sure, they win team fights. We kind of knew that already with the way their draft works, but a Baron just spawning up is not really an objective. Death time is very low, and if Vici can be annoying enough for long enough, then they'll probably get themselves in the point where, you know, they can split push out this game. And for me, the biggest thing is the goal difference. Vici aren't just up 3 dragons to 0. The goal's about 2,000 between the two teams, actually less than that.
Yeah, it's only 2,000 gold, which is not a big advantage, but it's with a team fighting comp. So whenever a team fighting comp is ahead in gold, they're looking for the flank engages. They're looking for the hard engagement. A lot of it's pretty linear. You know, obviously Kennen wants to get right into the middle of a fight, run in there. And with the teleport being down and the flash being down, a lot of resources were used to secure a team fight win, but it'd be so much more important if that team fight was around Dragon or a big objective.
Yeah, Kara here in the top lane as well, just going to push back that side wave. Well, let's actually did a good job there on Lissandra, using that very efficient wave clear to push Nara in a bit more. And Dragon is back in a minute 40 here. Vici could look for their 4th in about 23 minutes, which would be absolutely insane timer for that. And Hetong, I think you kind of felt a bit robbed in the last fight, did a lot of damage, but now as the death cap, if that fight happens again, Vici are in a much better position.
He's just another person though that needs to sit so far back because of all the gap close on the LGD side. The flash, assault and battery is just off cooldown right now and can really close the distance from a long range. The solar flare has excellent range as well. There's just so much CC. It's just life is difficult for all these carries on the Vici side.
Ooh. Fighting might be difficult though for LGD, so we'll see what happens here. It's Dragon up in a minute 5 now. LGD would love to claim their first one finally here, and they've got some good items to contest for it as well. I love the zone is coming through for Wayless as his second item, so big spike there for the Lissandra as well. Inf, of course, 2 items ready to go with the Shiv plus the IE, but things are still going decently here for Vici. They're getting their items up as well.
They're getting good defensive wards, LGD, around this Dragon, but not the aggressive wards to either get a flank or give them an idea of the positioning of these long-range carries like the Xerath. They want to get some advanced vision. They just haven't been able to walk through the wall of spears coming out of Dandy.
Yeah, and you can see Mata waddling very aggressively there with the mobility boots on Annie. Dandy poking back and forth as well. They know they can't straight up fight LGD 5v5. Teleport's not up for Akon though, but he's already walking down as a result of that. Carry will have his. He's actually just transformed into Meganar, so won't have that available most likely once that objective rolls around. So Vici again can't really look for a team, but have to poke off with the Xerath Needly.
Yeah, 10 seconds, not looking to come down, but of course he does have the teleport. He's going to try and build up the rage. They need to disengage a fight for as long as possible here because their only real chance of a fight is a massive wombo between Carry and Mata. There is the potential for a huge wall stun coming out of the otherwise fairly poke-centric team.
Well, LGD here are going to start their first Dragon now of the game and take it very, very quickly. So Vici very intelligently don't contest it, looking maybe for an objective as Dandy going to saunter over to the blue buff, puts a ward down as well, keeping the vision up. But Vici, kind of know that if this keeps happening, they'll eventually just fall too far behind.
Absolutely. The first Dragon is okay, but they need to double down on working towards the 5th Dragon. It's their real big win condition in this game because with the extra stats afforded, they're so easy to out-rotate a team with the 10% move speed. The 12% AD AB does help with turret pushing. That's where Vici's comp really has the ascendancy over LGD. The team fighting, though, we've said it so many times, it's not an option, so they have to double down on what they can do, which is pick up these objectives.
I mean, for me, the other bridge sort of feels like getting the Baron buff for Vici, but even that's sort of a dangerous proposition, because again, LGD, if you do that and they know the Baron's on, can walk in and team fight you, force you to fight, which is the last thing you want to have happen. So I like this from Vici, lots of aggressive wards and trying to find a pick, because that's really all they're left with options-wise.
Yeah, Flash is just available on Mata, but is spotted out by the Shuriken right there, so he does have the Flash tip as possibility. I do agree with you. This is the nerfed Barons. There is the potential to take an early Baron. Vasily, of course, has the huge Baron secure on the Ren. But they need Gnar to commit to tanking that Baron, so it becomes a bit more predictable. If it's not Gnar and Vasily missing off the map, the Baron pressure is almost nil.
Yeah, and you mentioned Vasily there. Maybe the plan for split pushing can finally be enacted now for Vici because the Hurricane has been completed along with that Bloodthirster now as well. So a very self-reliant Vasily there on this Kalista. If he's going to split push for his team, he's probably going to start the train rolling now.
But he needs the ward coverage. He can definitely dual Graves because, of course, with all the mini jumps, you have the ability to avoid the buckshot and the collateral damage, even without using flash. But there's no advanced vision to give him defensive options in terms of pushing the top. So it's not really a viable option right now, at least, to split push.
I think, especially, you can split push against Graves in lanes because, of course, there are minions there that you get to lifesteal off of as well. So there's lots going on here for Vasily in terms of, split push potential, and he's starting in towards the top lane to do that. But again, if he doesn't have the wards, like you mentioned, LGD have plenty of ways to lock down a Kalista.
It's not often that we talk about a Vici gaming comp falling behind in vision, but that is definitely what is happening in this game. The vision has been excellent from LGD. I guess they're just used to having the double sidestone coming down from Dandy and Mata, and their ability to put wards in smart places. Often you could actually accuse Vici of being more over-warded than under-warded. Sometimes they haven't been able to take advantage of all the vision they've gotten, so I can understand the movement towards a more carry-style champion for Dandy. It's not the Rengar that we're used to, it's the Nillies. It's a bit of a different flavor, but they haven't really lost out from the pick either.
No, and Dandy actually has finished his Seraphs as well, so has a decent tank item there as well. Blue buff going to get donated over to Hetong. Acorn actually down the bottom, got a Negatron Cloak, like looking for an Abyssal Scepter, but just kind of hanging out and trying to keep the waves pushed out as well. And Vici grouping a little bit more. No, Dragon not quite up yet, and LGD, they're just looking for a fight.
It's a bit of a stalemate though. LG just don't have the wards to be able to get a flank engage. They have good warding around the Baron especially, but they kind of need those more aggressive wards, maybe at the enemy Raptors, maybe at the enemy Wolves, just to be able to have an angle for the Slicing Motion to come out from a surprising angle with the flash and the ultimate there. They don't have that, so they've got only really the linear engage options that come in front of, in vision. In a 5v5 situation in vision, it's so hard to force a fight because you know exactly what's coming, and it's easy to disengage from that.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned stalemates, because that's exactly what we've got here in this game as far as warding especially has gone. There are no real objectives to fight over, because Barons are a little risky for both teams still. Vici could poke LGD off, and LGD will just fight Vici if they do it. And problem with LGD, if they group together as 5 to get deep wards, Vici will split push them and poke them off objectives as well. But if Vici try and do the same thing, and they get cut out of position, LGD is going to kill them with all their engaged. So the stalemate's very obvious almost with the way the team comps play out, and neither team's willing to take that sort of a risk yet.
No one's taking the next step to really overextend for initiation. We kind of saw that when Acorn teleported in and did the flash ult around the enemy red buff. It didn't really pay off there. They did end up winning the fight, but that was just having so many AoE ultimates available. And kind of the issue for Vici is that you think about how they're going to finish out this game. It involves sieging of some description. And against 1 or 2 of these initiation threats, that'd be fine. You can beat a balanced teamfight comp with poke. But because they have so many initiation options, especially the massive amount of range that Chuen's ultimate can cover, 303 as this fight, already got an Aegis for a team. It's just so difficult for them to ever group and poke. So I wonder what their win condition is if they can never get the wards to supplement the split push.
I mean, if LGD never get a fight, then their win condition... It's funny, because both teams are clearly having like very delicately balanced win conditions, and we've got a very close game all of a sudden. LGD are ahead of 1,500 gold or so. Vici's still up in Dragons. The next one's up in a minute. That's a probably biggest point of action coming through here, but these two teams have played so carefully, really understanding and respecting each other's comps.
Yeah, and I would say that the Dragon taking advantage comes from LG just because if they can get in position early, if they have Cannon and, say, Lissandra at chokes, what's Vici to do? They don't have too many options. They did force the flash out of PYL, so they're starting to get the vision advantage for themselves. Akon's actually backing now, has a pretty big buy. The Abyssal Scepter should be very important in a fight if Lissandra's able to get towards the back line. But look, I expect LGD to have position on these fights with all this CC, but they've kind of been harangued out of the Dragon Pit.
I mean, the other thing as well, you can't get poked by the 3 items Zerath there as well. Void Staff is done for Hetong to go in for with the Death Cap and the Morellonomicon, and we're still at a standstill here. Schwen is going to recall back. Does have his Aegis actually, which is quite helpful against the poke from Dandy and Hetong specifically. Locket is now done as well for Vice, so that's a very strong pickup as well. But Dragon up in 10 seconds. Vici might actually just be better positioned here.
Hard time on those items on Hetong is crazy to be so strong, and you say it very correctly. With these mid-range champions like Acorn's Cannon, like Wayless's Lissandra, the poke is going to stick coming out of Hetong, but he is split from his team right now. That might be awkward.
Yeah, he's got to be careful, walk the long way around, but Dandy doing a great job with the poke on the spears. PYL chunked to about 1/3 health already, and Dandy still chucking spears in as well.
It's just such a stalemate. I expect Vici to start the Dragon soon. The engage will come. Flash is available across the board. Only PYL has a summoner down. And the initiation is going to come from somewhere.
I mean, Mata positioning aggressively as well. Lissandra also going in Imp. I like the counter push there, but that mid tower is still up, so Vici don't feel super threatened by a Dragon. Very low there at about 1/3 health, but Schwen's going to dive in. Kalista should be able to get it. Does do so for the 4th, and now Schwen going to dive in on top of Dandy, but PYL is so low. Mata almost kills him himself, and now Vasily going to dive in, carry that. Chucks Wayless into the wall, but Akon's going in the middle. Just destroys Vasily with the help of Imp as well. And now Hetong and Mata have to run very far away. That's going to force a flash out there. Looks like more kills might come through. Dandy actually lived in there as also just 2 for 1. But Schwen going to chase in. Now Nidalee going to look for the 1v1 here from the jungle, and Dandy's like, I don't really fancy this anymore. Does use the Tilling Smite. Going to dodge the Bolt Maker beautifully though. And Dandy, ever the duelist, might get away with it. Hatong as well going to come in for the assist and does get it. 2 for 2.
A surprisingly even fight there, you have to say. It was scattered, and that of course works to Vici's advantage. There was never the layered ultimate that they were really looking for, the LGD. The Exekill, no, does not come down for
Very
Wayless.
nice. That was a clutch cleanse there from Hatong as well to get out. But Akon snaps him with a shuriken. Still 3 for 3, even again.
And why did I ever question Dandy's potential to play the AP Nidalee? He's been very smart fighting around the edges of these fights, even though he doesn't have the tanky items. Of course, the implied tankiness of the Seraphs helps him out a little bit, but fighting so smartly, 3-1-1 now, is doing work.
Yeah, really sick mechanics on that last duel against Schwen there as well. And Vici, the other thing we mentioned, it was a kill trade, but not an objective trade. Vici, that was their 4th dragon.
And the 4th dragon means that this game does have that 6-minute timer as the 5th dragon. It equalizes any team comp. If you pick up that 5th dragon, you can make things happen. And Vici is so close to it so early in the game.
I mean, it's crazy to me to think that a game of League of Legends could be decided purely on just dragon control. And this is sort of the cool thing that we're seeing a bit more, of course, in this in 2015. And just in general, now that we've moved a patch as well from the LPL, teams are now deciding, how do I want to win the game?
Yeah, there's so many different win conditions, whether it's the team fights, focus on team fights and turrets and fast rotations, or whether it's picking up the Dragon and Baron buffs. The Dragon has just become such a more important objective. It's not 130 gold in your pocket. It's 1 stack towards a potential 5 stack that wins you the game.
I mean, at least in Plasma the game, we did see, of course, the M36.
They eventually won the game.
Took them a few more, but yeah, it's a very strong buff for sure. As Carry here just kind of pushing out. Imp as well, very strong here on this Graves. 3.5 items done for him. So he's added the Last Whisper there along with a Vampiric Scepter to go with his other 2 there. Vasily adding a Last Whisper there is also big damage coming through as well. And Dandy even adding to that flat AP. Need to see Ladrod done now for his Nidalee as well. Was doing pretty good poke damage before on the support, who's fairly tanky here from PYL. Going to be chunking out even more now.
I guess the frustrating part of this game is that every time flashes are down on Vici's side, they've got no interest in even looking towards a skirmish, let alone a fight. They're just priced in to wait those 6 to 5 minute cooldowns for those summoners to come up, and it's an issue. They're looking at the side waves here. The side waves are starting to push top from Vici. The grouping comes in against from LGD. They don't have the best turret siege, but they're going to get it.
Yeah, Wayless going in. Great flash, double W, and Akon dives in on the cannon as well. Carry going to get locked up here. That's a very instant 3 for 0. Now Schwen going to dive in there. Vi with the double, and LGD fire back.
Yeah, the flashes were down, and that's where the engage finally comes in strong from LGD. 4 instant kills with all the AoE CC coming through. They're going to look to Baron, but of course, the Prince of Thieves, Dandy, is alive.
Oh, Dandy, not really someone you want to be tanking Nidalee Spear as well. And he's going to go in now. Dandy, can he do it? Against some former teammates here as well. Going to be moving in there. Baron under half health now. Dandy has to go in very soon if he wants to go get it. Almost pokes and actually misses. Imp goes over the top to zone him out. Dandy actually might just die from this as well. That should secure LGD to Baron. Dandy in a whole host of trouble as well. He's going to try and outplay Imp, but Imp just going in aggressively. 2 more crits, and that's all he needed.
Yeah, former teammates collide, and Imp is the one that comes up big there. There was just nothing Dandy could do in that fight. On the Nidalee, looks his best poking, looks his best going for any sort of assassination kills, but just has nothing to offer when his team is AoE down.
And it's funny, that's 2 different fights. We've had both teams kind of utilize their team comp and win conditions well. Vici got ahead in the first one for that 4th dragon, and LGD got very far ahead after taking, again, the massive AoE team, but that their comp sort of demands of them.
I mean, the issue is you get the 5th dragon, you still don't want to opt into a fight unless it's perfect from Vici, unless you get the massive poke coming in from Xerath. The split push was their more realistic win condition this game, and it's just never happened because they just have never been in a position for Mida to get the wards to support the split push coming out of Facility.
Yeah, and again, it's all the matter of no one could really break the stalemate. All the wards ended up in the neutral sections of the map, and LGD were just able to force a fight, and Vici might have got the 4th dragon, but if LGD shut them out of the 5th, they're probably not as worried as they might be.
And they won't be too worried. Of course, they have the Baron buff now, so the lanes will be pushing consistently in their advantage. So much harder to contest Dragon when you've got waves across the map crashing into your inner turrets. less options here for Vici when it comes to contesting this 5th dragon.
And you can see the Baron buff already helping LGD as well. So many wards in the right-hand side of the map there on Vici's side of the jungle, and even some pink wards kind of creeping forward on the top side there as well. So it only took one fight, but LGD with the Baron buff now as carry, going to find Imp here pretty tanky on the stone. Imp doesn't really fancy this fight, although now Cannon's going to join in as well. Maybe he'll go in for it. Randuin's does get popped there. Minina has to run away here. Not really that tanky against his Graves without Mega Knight going in. Imp might just go in for the solo, turns around, gets the creeps instead, and carry with the bounce back should be fine.
Actually awkwardly cancelled an auto that of course would have brought Quickdraw up closer. If it was a crit, there was the potential for the kill to come up. He forces Nara away though, and they might take this inner turret in the top.
I mean, all LG really want is pressure there, and that's good pressure on the carry by Imp. And you mentioned the flashes, they're coming back now. They're actually all back up for Vici, but defending with this comp is not as good as sieging or split pushing.
No, definitely. Whenever a split push comp falls behind, they have the wave clear, they have the poke, but they just open themselves up to initiation every time they move towards a minion wave.
And LGD very smart as well. Dragon back up. They've timed it very well here after the 4th there from Vici. We'll take their 2nd now. And, you know, their 2nd Dragon's fine. It's not the be-all, end-all. It's not that exciting, but most exciting, oh, Xerath going to go in. Doesn't steal it, though. Good smite there from Xuan, and a great attempt from Hatong, but falls short there.
It's absurd how far and how safely he could try to snipe away that Dragon, but of course, level 17 is Xerath. That 3 points in the ultimate, the max range ultimate, has massive range. They're not able to pick up what would have been a bonus 5th Dragon. And now LGD, they're playing to their win conditions. They're staying group. There's no option whatsoever for a split push. So although the minion waves are pushing well in terms of the bottom lane minions, LGD are just looking for the perfect dive.
Yeah, Vici just having trouble. Dandy trying to keep LGD out of his jungle, but can't really do it. People are now much tankier on this. Leon has the right to score for a bit of extra initiation as well, and LGD going to group up as 4 or 5 strong here and towards the top and take down a tier 2.
It's nothing Vici can do in terms of competing for this objective. They have no rage on Carry, who's been basically completely anonymous on the Gnar. We've seen so many Gnars massive in lane and then transition into team fight threat, but he just kind of doesn't have an identity in the team comp that Vici have put together.
And that was maybe my next question here, is that we talk a lot about these teams' win conditions and how they've drafted here. There are very clear objectives that both teams are trying to pull off, and they've had successes in this game in different parts of it as well. But it's just a case where Vici this whole time just feel behind with the way they've drafted.
It does feel like there was always a point in the game where if they fell behind in objectives, they just wouldn't be able to compete for the victory. They've got the Gnar Annie combo for team fights, but this is not a team you can at any point look to team fight with the comp they've picked. Nidalee Xerath forces them into a poke playstyle that they just really can't handle.
I mean, is the change there to, is it the mid or the jungle that they might look to swap out here? Dandy obviously plays quite a few champions. Tonga big Xerath player, but has others in his pool as well. Is there something here that Vici could have done to maybe balance the team fighting more? Because it feels like they could never approach LGD in this game as far as 5v5 goes, which makes it very hard to contest the objective you're trying to get.
And once they commit to the Nidalee, it's kind of a narrow team comp. I guess you could have gone for more disengage, and maybe a Nami instead of the Annie, just for more disengaged flavor in a skirmish situation. The Annie seems kind of the identity crisis seems to be coming out here for Mata, because Flash Tibbers is the name of the game for support Annie. It just doesn't do a lot when she just dies in the AoE from all the Wombo coming out of LGD.
And if we cast our minds back to this draft of this game, for me it might just be the 2nd pick Kallisto. Clearly a champion that Vici is comfortable on, but kind of forced a lot into this comp. And LGD, as soon as I saw it, they just started rattling off hard engage.
And look, we saw Crystal go massive against Vici on that Kallisto. They were never able to get to the back lines, and she just mowed people down with the Bloodthirster Hurricane build. It's just so much different when they already had the Vi locked in. They stack on all this extra dive, and there's no answers coming out of Kallisto in those sort of situations. There's just nothing she can do.
Well, and LGD very far in control now of this game. 10,000 gold ahead and knocking down turrets here. Baron has one off, but they don't really need it. And, I mean, Vasily's going to come in. That's good. Demo actually a great flash out there. And Aegon defensively ultis there as well. But Wayla's going straight in. Aegon over the top as well. Massive damage there in the back. And now Xuan going to try and turn off. Hatong Carry's going to go down there as well. 3-0 already. Xuan does fall, but Dandy almost down there as well. Imp going very aggressive under the turret. Can't quite get the smoke screen onto her tongue, but PYL might look as well. I mean, Vici will defend for now. The ulti coming through as well. Aegon has to be careful. Wayla dodges the bot. He should be fine here as well. And a very strong fight there. 3-1 in favor of Vici. Now they break the base.
It was a massive Gnar coming out from Carry, but it just didn't mean anything because there's no one in this team comp that can capitalize on that. Dandy at the back, he's poking. He has no mana at this point, so has to back away. And LG, they eventually take the inhibitor turret and the inhibitor.
And Vici, now that they can no longer be as proactive around objectives as they were in the first, say, 20-25 minutes, really struggling as LGD to shove them back into their base. I mean, Dandy does great damage, even a locket to sort of support his team as well. Xerath is doing silly amounts of damage with an extra EDC large rod on top of his 3 extra items. Even Vasili's doing good damage here as well, but as you mentioned, when it comes to 5v5, LGD's comp cannot be outbeat.
I mean, 064 has all the items to carry. We're going to see a replay right here, and you can see that Vici try to make their comp work. They use their champions effectively. They force the flash out. Akon has to defensively ultimate. So it's a very scattered engage, but the fight's actually on in mid.
Yeah, Wayless in trouble, who was the man in that replay, was doing so much work in that dive, and Vici with the pick might actually be able to get an objective, but not many up on the map, unfortunately.
Yeah, the minion wave's pushing very aggressively in the bottom lane. It's equalized in the top, but in terms of objectives, Baron is live, but against all the team fight AoE still available, super risky for Vici.
Yeah, I mean, that was a 60-second death timer there for Wayless. Still 40 seconds now as well, but Vici, I think, speaks to just how this draft performed when it gets to this point in the game. We're 40.5 minutes into this one already. LGD have ridiculous items, and so do Vici. But again, when it comes to straight-up brawling, LGD's comp just does it far better.
And the super minions continue to push into the bottom, and they need Gnar to go and start clearing them out. They're responding to the death timer here. They're starting to aggress onto Baron, but it's risky.
It is risky, but they can take it quite quickly here, especially with the Baron being a little weaker than normal. PWL going to throw some ulti in. Akon trying to set up a good ulti there from PWL to go in. Now Xenoblade going to launch him in, and Akon going to go through. Imp gets an easy kill there on Tomato. Dandy hops over the wall and maybe looking to go back in, but Akon's doing so much damage. Vasili hopping around but can't fight Imp, and Dandy going back in, tries to get the Baron, can't do it. Triple kill for Imp and 4-1 LGD.
And that's the risk right there. Once the AoE magic resist shred comes in, you don't need much more bonus damage when you have already the AoE wombo available. It didn't even matter that Lissandra wasn't there, and Akon's trying to backdoor this Nexus.
Yeah, I mean, early teleport, he's doing a lot of damage already. Nar could be in a bit of trouble. Who actually, Akon going to go aggressive on top of him. Will get the kill there, and LGD have all the time in the world there. Nexus, Akon can just kind of hit it with his forward if he wanted to, but it's going down.
They're letting Imp get in the picture right here. Massive game from Imp, 9-0-7. He had the answer to the Kalista that he struggled to play effectively last week. The Graves did monstrous work there for LGD. But it just felt like Vici were outcomped. They played their win conditions very well in the early game, but the moment they gave up any semblance of an objective, it felt like they were strangled out because there was always a person with pick CC in a brush.
And Kennen, a win in the LPL for the split finally. Lupa couldn't get it done, but Akon, his compatriot, will do there as well. And again, LGD had a very narrow comp, arguably does one thing very well, but man, does it do it well.
And usually the answer to such a strong team fight comp is the split push, but Kalista never found the split push. She built for it. She had the Bloodthirster Hurricane. She could mow down waves, but there was never the defensive wards coming out of Mata to support that kind of playstyle. And it's always risky when there's so many initiation sources, the potential teleport coming out from the cannon. It kind of harangued them out of split push, and if you've got a team that can't stand up in team fight, can't stand up in split push, gets an objectively but then eventually falls behind, there's just so many limited options there in terms of getting back into the game.
Yeah, it seems like we do have a replay from that game as well, so let's go back and see just how devastating LGD's comp was.
So we're 29 minutes into the game, we're going to see one of the first big AoE wombo comes. Chuen actually goes in very aggressively. They stack their CC pretty suboptimally in this fight. The carry ultimate onto Wayless is nice, but Akon is the big winner here, getting a huge flash slicing Maelstrom for the initial double kill. Vici have to keep splitting, and that's kind of the flavor of this Vici team comp, is that they can't stand up in a team fight setting. They need to move the threats away. They need to remove the CC, AoE CC pressure, but there was just so much AoE CC across the board that whatever they could do, it was not enough.
Well, pretty creative double AP there, and we'll see if they can repeat it again. Guys, and we'll be back for Game 2 very shortly.